Fans have a constitutional right to expect success and have high expectations. I do not support a constitutional amendment to prohibit gay marriage. Short of the passage of a constitutional amendment protecting marriage as between one man and one woman, the U.S. Supreme Court has the final say. Obama's failure to close Guantanamo is yet another instance where the rhetoric of democratic and constitutional rights proved not useful for his international relations which are always pursued in ways that continue to link and fortify securitarian power with the opening of new markets. Our founding fathers crafted a constitutional republic for the first time in the history of the world because they were shaping a form of government that would not have the failures of a democracy in it, but had the representation of democracy in it. We can't forget what happened on May 4, 1970, when 4 students gave up their lives because they had the American constitutional right of peaceful protest. They gave up their lives. And to sing that song in that spot on that anniversary was very emotional for us. The growth of modern constitutional government compels for its successful practice the exercise of reason and considerate judgment by the individual citizens who constitute the electorate. I think we Americans, of all people, understand the importance of a good, legal, constitutional framework as the basis of political life. At the constitutional level where we work, 90% of any decision is emotional. The rational part of us supplies the reasons for supporting our predilections. The great constitutional corrective in the hands of the people against usurpation of power, or corruption by their agents is the right of suffrage, and this when used with calmness and deliberation will prove strong enough. The court is most vulnerable and comes nearest to illegitimacy when it deals with judge-made constitutional law having little or no cognizable roots in the language or design of the Constitution. Any constitutional amendment that simply gives Congress the option of regulating campaign finance fails to immediately achieve what the American people want, and that is a complete reversal of Citizens United and other Supreme Court decisions that have allowed corporations and the wealthy few to drown out the voices of everyday voters. I do not espouse the unitarian position. President Clinton's assertion of directive authority over administration, more than President Reagan's assertion of a general supervisory authority, raises serious constitutional questions. Any government in the world, when facing an armed rebellion, has a constitutional, legal, and moral obligation to resist these militants. So far, 44 states, or 88% of the states, have enacted laws providing that marriage shall consist of a union between a man and a woman. Only 75% of the states are required to approve a constitutional amendment. The American people must be able to trust that their courts and law enforcement will uphold, protect, and defend their constitutional rights. Joe Biden willfully abandoned his duty as President of the United States and violated his constitutional oath to take care that the laws be faithfully executed by failing to ensure the national security of the United States and its citizens. Constitutional government, as designed by the framers, will survive only with a righteous people. Corruption, the most infallible symptom of constitutional liberty. I oppose a constitutional amendment against gay marriage. The principal factors which influence my life are 1. Nonviolent tactics, 2. Constitutional means, 3. Democratic procedures, 4. Respect for human personality, 5. A belief that all people are one. Federalism is an intrinsic part of our constitutional setup. When you're allowing the executive branch to deprive somebody of a constitutional liberty without any process, that is something that affects all Americans because that's a precedent that can be used. Every American, regardless of their background, has the right to live free of unwarranted government intrusion. Repealing the worst provisions of the Patriot Act will rein in this gross abuse of power and restore to everyone our basic constitutional rights. No Congress ever has seen fit to amend the Constitution to address any issue related to marriage. No constitutional amendment was needed to ban polygamy or bigamy, nor was a constitutional amendment needed to set a uniform age of majority to ban child marriages. While 45 of the 50 states have either a state constitutional amendment or a statute that preserves the current definition of marriage, left-wing activist judges and officials at the local levels have struck down state laws protecting marriage. There is a danger to judicial independence when people have no understanding of how the judiciary fits into the constitutional scheme. The people are the only legitimate fountain of power, and it is from them that the constitutional charter, under which the several branches of government hold their power, is derived. The question is, how bad do things have to get before you will do something about it? Where is your line in the sand? If you don't enforce the constitutional limitations on your government very soon, you are likely to find out what World War III will be like. We need a new generation of leaders who will promote policies that will foster economic growth and alleviate the middle-class squeeze, defend America's national security against those who threaten our people, reform the culture of Washington, D.C., and reassert the constitutional principles that make our country unique. Hitler's dictatorship rested on the constitutional foundation of a single law, the enabling law. We would be false to our trust if we allowed the time it takes to give effect to constitutional rights to be used as the very reason for taking away those rights. I wish the government and the Minister of Justice would address these legal and constitutional arguments, but they refuse to. They want Canadians to go blindly into their brave new world, but it is not wise for a society to move blindly in any direction. It may be necessary to use methods other than constitutional ones. I'm knocking our pitiful, pathetic lawmakers, and I thank God that President Bush has stated, we need a constitutional amendment that states that marriage is between a man and a woman. Patients who are being kept alive by technology and want to end their lives already have a recognized constitutional right to stop any and all medical interventions, from respirators to antibiotics. They do not need physician-assisted suicide or euthanasia. Our whole constitutional heritage rebels at the thought of giving government the power to control men's minds. The greatest threat to the constitutional right to vote is voter fraud. Instead of giving money to found colleges to promote learning, why don't they pass a constitutional amendment prohibiting anybody from learning anything? If it works as good as the Prohibition one did, why, in 5 years we would have the smartest race of people on earth. Judicial review has been a part of our democracy in this constitutional government for over 200 years. If there is any fixed star in our constitutional constellation, it is that no official, high or petty, can prescribe what shall be orthodox in politics, nationalism, religion, or other matters of opinion, or force citizens to confess by word or act. In 1987, the United States celebrates the bicentennial anniversary of the Constitutional Convention that provided the basic rules for the American political order. This convention was one of the very few historical examples in which political rules were deliberately chosen. Why don't they pass a constitutional amendment prohibiting anybody from learning anything? If it works as well as Prohibition did, in 5 years Americans would be the smartest race of people on earth. The First Amendment does not guarantee the press a constitutional right of special access to information not available to the general public, nor does it cloak the inmate with special rights of freedom of speech. We have a constitutional republic, not a democracy. I didn't know that President Bush would endorse a constitutional amendment banning same-sex marriage. We are a nation of United States, a constitutional republic made up of individually governed states empowering 3 equal branches of government to act on our behalf, not one nation-state governed exclusively by a president. I do go against my leadership all the time because I stand firm on the 4 questions that I ask about all legislation. The first, is it constitutional according to the original intent? The second, does it fit the Judeo-Christian biblical principles that our nation is founded upon? Third, do we need it? Fourth, can we afford it? The key issue is not who is in charge but what. Russia's problem is constitutional. There is no division of powers. The judges, the police, and the legislature all work for the same people, and there is essentially no trial by jury. As a result, anyone can be arrested and accused of anything, and conviction is almost guaranteed. I am a free lover. I have an inalienable, constitutional and natural right to love whom I may, to love as long or short a period as I can, to change that love every day if I please. Visit our website for more quotes, quoting.com.